Alright, so thanks for tuning in today. I really appreciate that. In this video, I'm going to be discussing edging with a string trimmer. Now this is something that can be somewhat difficult in terms of it takes more talent to edge with a string trimmer than it actually does to edge with a metal blade edger. You know, with a metal blade edger, you pretty much just put it down and you walk. There's not much to it as far as actually understanding and comprehending how to make it look consistent, because the machine will pretty well do all of the work for you. However, whenever you're using a string trimmer, there is a little bit of an art to it, a little bit of a talent that you have to develop in order to do it consistently and to do it well. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's go ahead and jump right into this discussion with a few major points before we get to the string trimming. The first thing I want to talk about is that you're going to need to have a little bit of a longer string. So what I mean is, don't have your string just really short like this. Make sure you can have it as long as possible. If you're someone that decides that you want to edge with a guard, you have a string trimmer with a guard on it, then have the string as long as that guard will allow. If you're somebody like me that edges without a guard, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have this string really long, easily a foot plus long all of the time. I found that to be very effective in helping me to get a consistent quality cut. The next thing that you need to make sure that you're doing whenever you're edging with a string trimmer is to make sure you have a really good grip. So this is going to be something that's going to depend on your individual size, your individual body build. For me, I'm about 5'8", 5'9", and with this Stihl KM94R, I found it best to edge somewhat like this, where I have one hand up here on the trigger and another hand down here on the shaft and just holding it like so. Now for some people, you may be more comfortable doing this, or you may be more comfortable holding it down here and edging somewhat like this if you're a taller guy. It's going to depend on your body build, your experience level, and what ultimately feels the most comfortable to you. The next thing that I want to discuss is knowing what type of an edge you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with a really deep edge, alright, so this is the type of edge here that I'm talking that I would string trim with my string actually canted in a little bit. So you can see how the concrete comes way above the ground here. So instead of having my string perfectly perpendicular to the ground, I'm going to come at it with a little bit of an angle to make sure this edge stays completely clean. The reason that I found this to be successful is that a lot of times if you don't, you'll leave little bitty grass clippings right next to the concrete. And if you just bring your string a little bit in, just kind of can it a little bit in, it's going to eliminate that most of the time and allow you to have that perfect clean edge going down. Now whenever I have a concrete where the grass and the concrete, the dirt really is more of what we're talking about here, the dirt and the concrete are pretty well even, such as this one where the ground is actually a little bit higher or perfectly even with the concrete, I'm going to come at it perfectly straight up and down to get that edge clean. Back to the video. I'm going to hold it pretty well vertical, my string, so I'm not going to can it. I'm just going to hold it nice and vertical to the concrete, nice and perpendicular, perfectly perpendicular, instead of a little bit of that inward turn that I would do on the deep concrete. So we discussed a few things here. Let's go ahead, let's jump right into actually edging. Alright, so as for the actual act of edging, one of the last points that I want to bring up here before we start edging is you really have 4 different ways that you can walk when you're edging. So I can walk on the concrete side, meaning that I'm actually standing on the concrete. I can walk either backwards on the concrete side, I can walk forwards on the concrete side, or I can come over to the grass side, meaning that I'm standing in the grass. And once again, I can either walk forward in the grass or I can walk backwards in the grass. Now it's important to have the ability to do all 4 of these options eventually. The easiest one for me personally, and that I have seen most beginners using, is to walk backwards or forwards, either way. Typically backwards I think is a little bit easier on the concrete side. But the one thing that you want to be aware of anytime you're edging is you want to make sure that you don't have anybody coming up in front of you, so that you don't run over or trip over somebody or fling a rock at them. So even when you're walking backwards, you want to have your head looking back enough so that you have a line of vision to be able to see where you're walking. If there's a customer coming up or another individual standing there, you want to make sure that you see them so that you don't have an accident occur in that situation. So let's go ahead and let's start edging here. Alright, so the last thing that I want to touch on today is to be aware of what is going on whenever you're actually in the process of edging. So what I mean by this is, for example, last week I was edging a property. We've had a lot of rain here in Arkansas, 10 plus inches, so my properties got backed up a little bit. Well, this edge was a little bit overgrown by this one seller, and so I'm edging along this property and I can't see in the actual edge because it is overgrown. So whenever I'm edging this, my string trimmer hits this snake, and the snake comes out of the edger. It was kind of an interesting experience, but fortunately for me, the snake had died on impact whenever the string trimmer hit its head, so I didn't have to worry about any issues there. But be aware of that. You know, on that same property, I actually had a rock, a good sized rock that my string trimmer had picked up, and it hit me right in the sunglass frame. So be aware of those things. Be aware of safety concerns for sure there, and make sure that you're watching for other people when you're edging. Let me know down in the comments section, what are some stranger things that have happened to you when you are actually edging properties. Let me know that down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate it, and we will see you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.